surprise, I brought Jay Stevens of Locked On Buckeyes back to talk about this because it's his conference too. So Matt Rhule of Nebraska said that the idea of canceling the Cornhuskers spring game is something they are considering because last year, after guys had good performances, he said players were tampered with and that that's likely to continue. And allow me to lay out my thoughts here, Jay, and then I'll let you jump in. Two things came into mind. First of all, this confirms things that I have said many a times in the past on this show, which is anytime a coach, a team, whoever is accused of tampering, I have no reaction to it because it is so prevalent, it is so widespread that there's no way I'm going to get mad that this team is doing it or that that coach did it when I know that coach has probably done it himself. He just hasn't been outed or caught, or he could have technically violated the tampering rules. So that's the first part of it. The second part of it is it's unfortunate that we have this college football world, as Jay and I were discussing at the end of the last segment here on today's show, that has changed a lot of long-standing traditions in the sport. And one of those is that the Nebraska Spring Game and many others is usually a big showcase event that a lot of people go to. It's not that for everybody, but for a lot of people it is. And for people like us, we enjoy covering such things because it's semi-real football and it gives people a chance to get excited about the next season. But the idea that you would take away a tradition like that because you have unlimited and constant free agency in the sport is just an unfortunate reality of the world that we've created. That the college football powers that be have once again, surprise, surprise, gone forward, and they have had actions that they didn't fully think about that continue to have ramifications that are harming the sport. I don't like the 12-team playoff. I never did, because it reduces the impact of a bunch of big regular season games. They're going to expand it to 14 one day. I believe they'll go to 24 one day, and you will have 9-3 and 8-4 teams getting in. We'll debate whether 7-5 Washington State or 8-4 Pitt should be getting into the college football playoff in a given year. And I think that because the FCS has, wait for it, 24 teams in its playoff. Someone will make that point. So I am not surprised that tampering is a problem for Nebraska or anybody else. And I am not surprised that because you have clowns driving the car here in college football, that you are once again threatening a sacred tradition in the sport, Jay.
I hate the thought that Matt Rhule is putting out there that the spring game might be canceled. I don't think it's been confirmed that it's going to be canceled yet, but the thought is out there, and Nebraska fans are going to be very, very upset, as they should be. It's a tradition. There are a lot of people that can go to spring games that are not financially able to go to a regular season game. And so you may get fans that drive 2 or maybe 3 or 4 hours to go to a practice, to see their favorite players play in a scrimmage for the first time in their life. They're buying all the jerseys and buying shirts and hats. Just try to remember that day. I understand what Matt Rhule is doing. Think about who their quarterback is. I know what his freshman season was, but there are going to be a lot of teams around the country, if Nebraska were to have a spring game, that watch that game, see how he grew from the end of the regular season until the springtime and say, oh, we can make him grow even more. We got receivers that he'll want to throw the ball to. And they're going to try to tamper like so many coaches do, or they'll use certain people that you wouldn't expect to tamper to contact that player to try to lure him in. I get it. I understand it. Spencer, it also sucks. We're both fans of college football. We both have been fans of our teams for a long time. Anytime you're taking something away from a fan because of something someone's doing that they shouldn't do, it's horrible. But that's what we're in right now in college football. Ryan Day's been preaching enforcement. Other coaches have been preaching enforcement. I don't think there's anybody that's going to try to enforce anything. And so Matt Rhule's having to make a decision. Do I allow people to get a look from my players in the spring, or do I take that away and reduce the risk of tampering? I understand why he wants to reduce it while also preparing for the 2025 season.
Yeah, I do as well. And with regards to a potential enforcement mechanism, I mean, you can want that all you want. You can hope, you can wish, you can dream. Who's doing it? The NCAA? I'm pretty sure we're 2 lawsuits away from that. We might even be less than that. lawsuits away from the NCAA just ceasing to exist and conferences running the show, which in large part they already do. And here's why that would never work. And you would actually need it to be the NCAA to enforce these things, but I don't know that they're in a position to be able to sink their claws into college football right now, because they conceded power in the sport a long time ago, gave it to television networks and conferences, and they're the ones who actually run it. The entity that would enforce any sort of tampering violations or rules would be who? The conferences. Mm-hmm. But if this conference is going to their coaches and they're really, battening down the hatches and saying, you're not going to do this, you can't do that, there's a penalty, do you think that conference over there is going to not allow their coaches to go and try and create a competitive advantage for them? Because I imagine that won't make them very happy and will make them try to venture out of the conference. And you'll have, let's say the Big 12, this is just all hypothetical for the sake of argument. If Brett Yormark decides we are going to crack down on tampering, I don't want anyone doing it. If I hear about it, you're fined $1 million and you're going to be like, it's just, you're going to face a tidal wave of sanctions and whatnot. But Jim Phillips in the ACC, comparable league, says, yeah, no, we don't want you to tamper. But then on the down low, he's like, yeah, go ahead and do it. I'm not going to enforce any of these rules and whatnot. And he's going to be, the cool community facilitator or residential assistant, whatever you call it, in college, in a dorm room. Then suddenly coaches are going to look at the ACC and go, I will leave my position here at insert Big 12 school to go be the head coach at Pitt or Duke or North Carolina, because over there I can tamper with kids. So there has to be an overarching body, the NCAA, that does it. But how much confidence do you have in that happening, Jay?
Not much. Not much at all. I don't really trust the conferences to police stuff either, as it says. Like Big Ten, SEC, I don't trust them at all. And it's weird that the conferences have so much power and there's a lot of stuff going on that shouldn't go on, but they allow it to go on because they're making a whole lot of money. And I know money drives decisions, and money is a big factor in a lot of the things going on with the playoff and with tampering and all that kind of stuff. It's just, I don't trust the NCAA. People got on Mark Emmert for the way he ran things, but I think it's worse now that he's no longer running the NCAA. So I'm like, what? Like, you blame a guy and he's gone, and it's worse when he's not there. So maybe you should apologize to him and blame the new guy, but you're not going to blame the new guy because you don't want to blame two people. This whole thing is stupid. It's very, very stupid. I wish there was another body, or a body was made up to run college football. That's not the college football playoff. I think that would be absorbed into whatever body runs college football. They need to centralize the sport, centralize officiating, centralize rules, everything to make it more of a true unified sport. But Spencer, we're saying stuff that everyone's been saying for a long time.
Decades.
Nothing's changed. It's just gotten worse.
I'll end with this note of optimism on the sweeping changes that I and many others recognize need to come in the sport. How long did it take before an actual playoff arrived? And a lot of people for a very long time said there needs to be a playoff. They're on the broadcast of my favorite sporting event I have ever watched that didn't involve one of my own teams, Boise State, Oklahoma, Fiesta Bowl 2006. The broadcast crew is talking about the merits of a playoff, and shouldn't Boise State get a chance to play Ohio State or Florida or LSU or whoever else was at the top of the sport at that time? And it's an interesting back and forth, but here we are. We've got a playoff, so maybe things can change for the better. But the enforcement of tampering, tampering is such a big, dirty word, and it encompasses something as simple as sending a kid a text who's going to enter the portal, but the software hasn't run it through the system yet. That coach has now tampered. I'll just leave you with that as well. So if you'd like to think, oh, well, you just got to enforce how? What's the evidentiary standard for a coach tampered with you? A kid sending you a screenshot? Those things can be manipulated in the world of AI. So yeah, nothing is easy except doing shows with my guy Jay Stevens, Locked On Buckeyes. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. And until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.